Hi, friends. Welcome to Story Time. Hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Before we get started, go ahead and find a comfortable space to watch the story. During the video, you can pause if you want to look at any of the pictures or talk about any of the questions. And then at the end, I have a fun idea for you for an activity that you can do later today. The story we're reading today is called The Ugly Vegetables. So, to get our brains ready, I want you to think about your favorite vegetables. What are some of the vegetables your family buys and eats? Where do you get them? How do they grow? What do they look like? What are some of your favorite ways to eat those vegetables? Take a look at the front cover here. You can see a girl and her mom in their garden. So in this book, we're actually going to get to see the vegetables that they grow in their garden, and we'll see how they use them to cook and make their own recipes. Our vocabulary word for today is going to be vegetable. So a vegetable is the part of the plant that humans and animals can eat for food. So when you think about carrots or tomatoes, the only part we eat is the vegetable. So we don't eat the roots, we don't always eat the leaves or the stems. There's only certain parts of the vegetables we eat. These are pictures of some of the vegetables we're going to read about in this story. So we're actually going to get to see some vegetables that you might not usually eat or might not usually see in the store, because vegetables look different all over the world. So there's lots of different types and different kinds that people eat. All right, our question for today is, how will the vegetables help the community? So right here we just see a girl and her mom, but during the story we're going to get to see how their whole neighborhood and their whole community gets helped by these ugly vegetables. All right, I'm going to make my picture a little bit bigger so that you can see the story, and we'll get started. The Ugly Vegetables by Grace Lin. Here's a picture of their neighborhood and the houses. Here are some of the different neighbors. Looks like they all have some gardens and different things growing in their yards too. In the spring, I helped my mother start our garden. We used tall shovels to turn the grass upside down, and I saw pink worms wriggle around. It was hard work. When we stopped to rest, we saw that the neighbors were starting their gardens too. Hello, Irma, my mother called to Mrs. Krummerine. Mrs. Krummerine was digging too. She was using a small shovel, one that fit in her hand. Mommy, why are we using such big shovels? Mrs. Krummerine has a small one. Because our garden needs more digging, she said. I helped my mother plant the seeds, and we dragged our hose to the garden. Hi, Linda. Hi, Mickey, I called to the Fitzgeralds. They were sprinkling water on their garden with watering cans. Mommy, why are we using a hose? Linda and Mickey have watering cans. Because our garden needs more water, she said. I'm noticing that there's some things that the girl and her mom are doing that are different from their neighbors. I bet she's thinking, why aren't we doing the same thing? How do you think that's making her feel? Then my mother drew funny pictures on pieces of paper, and I stuck them into the garden. Here's a close-up of the pictures they're doing. Hello, Roseanne, my mother called across the street to Mrs. Angelhow. Mommy, why are we sticking these papers in the garden? Mrs. Angelhow has seed packages in her garden. Because our garden is going to grow Chinese vegetables, she told me. These are the names of the vegetables in Chinese, so I can tell which plants are growing where. Ooh, so she's writing the names of the plants in the Chinese characters. So she's using a different language. That's what letters look like when we write with a different language. One day I saw our garden growing. Little green stems that looked like grass had popped out from the ground. Our garden is growing, our garden is growing. I rushed over to the neighbors' gardens to see if theirs had grown. Their plants looked like little leaves. Mommy, why do our plants look like grass? The neighbors' plants look different. Because they are growing flowers, she said. Well, why can't we grow flowers? I asked. These are better than flowers. Remember, Mom said that they were they were growing Chinese vegetables. Soon all of the neighbors' gardens were blooming. Up and down the street grew rainbows of flowers. The wind always smelled sweet, and the butterflies and bees flew everywhere. Everyone's garden was beautiful except for ours. So she's thinking that her garden looks different, and that's making her feel worried that it doesn't look as beautiful as the other gardens do. Our garden was all dark green and ugly. Why didn't we grow flowers? I asked again. These are better than flowers, Mommy said again. I looked, but I only saw black, purple, green vines, fuzzy, wrinkled leaves, prickly stems, and a few little yellow flowers. I don't think so, I said. You wait and see, Mommy said. Before long, our vegetables grew. Some were big and lumpy. Some were thin and green and covered with bumps. Some were just plain icky yellow. They were ugly vegetables. Why do you think she is feeling that these are ugly vegetables? Maybe because she's comparing them to the colorful flowers? Sometimes I would go over to the neighbors and look at their pretty gardens. They would show the poppies and peonies and petunias to me, and I would feel sad that our garden wasn't as nice. One day, my mom and I picked the vegetables from the garden. We filled a whole wheelbarrow full of them. We wheeled them to the kitchen, and my mom washed them, took a big knife, and started to chop them. Ay-yow, she said when she cut them. She had to use all of her muscles. Look how big the knife is. The vegetables were hard and tough. This is, one second. This is a chow hu gua, Mommy said, handing me a bumpy, curled vegetable. She pointed at the other vegetables. This is chan kai, and that's tong hao. I went outside to play, and while I was playing catch with Mickey, a magical aroma or smell filled the air. I saw the neighbors standing on their porches with their eyes closed, smelling the sky. They took deep breaths of air like they were trying to eat the smell. The wind carried it up and down the street, and even the bees and butterflies seemed to smell the scent in the breeze. I smelled it too, and it made me feel hungry, and it was coming from my house. What do you think is happening here? Yeah, her mom is cooking something with the vegetables. When I followed the smell to my house, my mother was putting a big bowl of soup on the table. The soup was yellow and red and green and pink. This is a special soup, she said. She gave me a small bowl of it and I tasted it. It was so good. The flavors of the soup seemed to dance in my mouth and laugh all the way down to my stomach. I smiled. Do you like it? Mommy asked me. I nodded and held out my bowl for some more. It's made from our vegetables, she told me. Then the doorbell rang and we ran to open the door. All of our neighbors were standing at the door holding flowers. We noticed you were cooking, Mr. Fitzgerald laughed as he held out his flowers. We thought maybe you would be interested in a trade. We laughed too, and my mother gave them each a bowl of her special soup. My mother told them about what each vegetable was and how she grew it. She gave them the soup recipe, which is the directions for how to make a soup, and put the soup into jars for them to take home. I ate 5 bowls. It was the best dinner ever. Look, the whole community has come together because of the vegetables. The next spring, when my mother was starting her garden, we planted some flowers next to the Chinese vegetables. Mrs. Krumerine, the Fitzgeralds, and the Angel House planted some Chinese vegetables next to their flowers. Soon, the whole neighborhood was growing Chinese vegetables in their gardens. Up and down the street, little green plants poked out of the ground. Some looked like leaves and some looked like grass, and when the flowers started blooming, you could smell soup in the air. The end. Thanks for reading that with me, friends. Let's go back and see if we can answer our story question. How did the vegetables help her community? Let's look back. At first, the girl was feeling really sad and worried because their garden looked so different than all of the flower gardens. Do you remember what happened when the vegetables grew and the mom cooked the soup? Everyone in the neighborhood smelled it. It was delicious. And everyone came over to trade and share. So the vegetables helped their community by showing them something new and giving them something to share. So now everyone in the community is growing flowers and Chinese vegetables. I wonder if you can try any new vegetables this week. Your job sometime today or maybe later this week, if you haven't been to the store yet, is to pick your favorite vegetable and paint with it. So when you cut some vegetables like peppers or strawberries or celery or corn, you can put paint on them and use it to stamp and create different textures and prints on paper. Here's some pictures of different vegetables that people have painted with and the different designs that they make when you stamp them. I hope you have fun and can't wait vegetable paintings. Have a wonderful day. Bye, friends.